Boom, you are live. That's what it says. Greetings, Arthur. Wow. Phenomenal vibe, phenomenal pleasure. I'm so excited to have you on. It's been a while, too. We've been together, we've been reasoning together, and it's always been a great vibe. So I'm very delighted to have you here tonight for me, today for you, because you're in Australia, so it's early in the day for you. Me, it's dark now. So, but we're gonna shine light into the darkness.
Yeah.
So, yeah, today
Oh, I
our
love.
topic. Yeah, today our topic. We said we were gonna dive deep right in. We're not gonna reminisce the past and all the talks we've been doing together. So, we're just gonna dive right in, and it's the super consciousness connection. Now, if I just give you a little intro, what I'm sensing, where you want to go, because there's nothing scripted on our side here. We just talk half an hour together. Arthur called me and he said, "You want to jump in now?" I said, "Yeah, I'm in." That's the whole thing. When I'm called to dance, I freaking dance.
We've
There's
done that
no
before, haven't
patience.
we? We've done that. We've actually made
Yeah,
it
yeah,
ad libbed and just gone for it back in the old days.
that's it.
What you said, the super consciousness, is actually true because it's a super intelligence connection, but that super intelligence is consciousness. It's what people refer to as God, but actually it's life. It's really life. It's just what I look at. Everything is life, and there's no beginning to life. There's no end to life. It's always life. Always comes out of life. Comes out of life, and it's eternal. And everything else that's confused, all that is what's gone against that super intelligence, which is fiction. To simplify it all, it's life and the system being fiction. So we have a connection with a natural connection with the super intelligence that we were meant to be raised up amongst it, which is nature, which is all the living things, which is what expands our access to the super intelligence, where that's already built into us opens up more and more and more through the stimulation, through that stimuli. That's what we're meant to have, but we are being raised by fiction. And the scale of fiction is still beyond most people's comprehension, but we'll try and touch on some of that from how I perceive it. So, including the alphabets, all the definitions, the meanings, the words, the letters, the scripts, all that's fiction. So, everything we define is fiction. Everything that's defined to us is fiction. Our direct sensory connection with life, the senses, is all around us. That and our true consciousness or that super intelligence is all around us. It's not in here. This is a lie. What we are doing in here is imagining fiction that was defined to us. We're accessing the storehouse of everything explained to us, everything that was done to us, including all the trauma and all the harm, everything else, all that's fiction. And so we are accessing that and using that to create stimulation, but we're stimulating the fiction, the darkness. We're not actually stimulating the superintelligence. So that superintelligence connection has been severed quite badly by um, a fractured reality. It's a shattered reality. Every definition being a piece of fragmentation that's had us pull apart from the superintelligence that we are or meant to be. So that's a very brief nutshell of that perception. So that's what I want to get into
Yeah,
talking about.
and
Um,
just for to enter the talk, a lot of the times we want to feel stuff. We want feelings from life. And there's a whole range of feelings we can access. Now, I want to feel the super consciousness. I want to
well,
feel the God essence or whatever you want to call it. And I
well,
think it is possible to feel it,
well,
but
you
you
already
have
are
to
because
experience it with intention, right?
it's very interesting you bring this up because that's so to me that's very spot on because the feeling is the substance of that super intelligence of that consciousness. It is you can touch, taste, feel, smell, hear, see that consciousness. What you talk about feeling. So it lives. It's called life. That is what you feel, life itself. And that life through the senses, the stimulation of senses, touch, taste, feel, smell, hear, see, sight, sound, is what you're feeling. So without reminiscing old talks we had, thoughts in itself don't exist. They're just imaginary imprints of definitions or ones that we've added to those fictions, and we are perceiving things through the imagining, through the imagination. So we spend a lot of time practicing 24/7, raised in the system, imagining feelings that don't even exist. But because we've done it for so long, we have become so assimilated to our own projection. It's our own placebo effect we've done to who we are. And because everyone else around us is also doing it, the feelings that we are accessing for stimuli is fiction. And it's the severing from the superintelligence that we also feel because we sense it, because feelings are sensory, they're senses. The senses are not here, like they're not all over us. It's all around us, it's everywhere. And we're part of what's everywhere. So when we're observing a life form in nature, like a butterfly or a bird, our consciousness is that feeling is there, observing it, experiencing it. So the more that we can connect with life, with a butterfly, for example, the more the information from that butterfly is coming to us. And so that stimulation is what inspires the superintelligence that we're accessing and opening up more and more and more. So from being a little thing in the womb to expanding, we already had it all built in as we were little, but now it's all opening up and expanding. All that incredible superintelligence that's built into all of life is manifesting by our own stimulation. So when children are brought up in nature, undefined, well, we're not teaching children how to think and feel. When we're not doubting, we're not distrusting, we're not living in the fear or being concerned about how we look to others and how we should fit into some modality, which is what the system's all about. We allow children, we're allowing life to expand their uniqueness and originality in the here and now, in the moment, in the eternal here and now of life. And that is the feeling. And you want to have more of that feeling. Well, it's just a matter of disconnecting, or at least being conscious enough to listen to what we're thinking, because it's telling us what we're feeling, because all thoughts are feelings. There is no separation between thoughts, feelings, dreams, be it fiction or life. So we have separated through our participation with fiction, because we were taught A, B, C. Now let's remember that again, children. Let's repeat it, A, B, C. And then we start forming words and the meanings attached to the words. And we're observing our parents because they've been brought up with the ABC, regardless of whatever alphabet language they may be talking. The definitions and all that coming from them are fiction. And if we access that and store it, it becomes that fake, what we call the ego, the person, what they call the person in law, or the straw man, or the agent in commerce, whatever you want to call it. It's just a storehouse of unnatural feelings we're living out of through volition, through our willingness, through our acquiescence to comply to that his story, the history of everything that we've been taught by everybody else. And that is an unnatural feeling in an unnatural alien world. It ain't real. So who we really are is not in what you and I are even talking about right now. All we can do is touch on the truth of these things, but we can't lead anyone to that. All we can do is show the veil, but each of us has got to remove our imagining that's formed the veil, which has left us in a dark place where that super intelligence we're supposed to be stimulated by should have been expanding, should have expanded. Because everything about life is growth, 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 magnificence, abundance, just in awe of all the beauty of life from the tiny little things. So going back to children, we're not meant to disturb their concentration, their contemplation when they're in nature, when they're amongst life itself. We let them complete whatever it is that they're observing. Because what actually you're doing is they're expanding their superintelligence.
Yeah, of course.
Right? But because of the outside of fiction coming in to us, and we then through trauma and through things that have been done to us, we've been taught to recall the history of everything, of all these unnatural feelings, all these, you can call it the library of life that's all not real. It ain't real. And so we live like ghosts in our own vessels, and we're drifting in a well,
In
it's
the
all
sea of it,
manipulated.
nonsense.
I'm just jumping a lot of things here at the moment, but the system to me now is like a mosh pit. It's like everybody's caught. Like that's what you call a suburb with cities and skyscrapers and apartments and that, and just everything is so condensed because they really believe that's their perception of reality. That's who they are. And they don't know how to step apart from it and access that super intelligence, realize, hang on, I'm not only that. So the way forward is to recognize what isn't the superintelligence. What is that nonsense, that what we call fiction, recognizing it. Now, they come up as, there's so many different feelings. Now, see, for example, nature doesn't teach us about hatred or dislike in that way. It doesn't teach us fear or uncertainty and distrust and all these other destructive emotional feelings that we communicate through our thinking, because that you look at all that intellectual information of what we're thinking, that's Hollywood coming at you. That's the internet. That's all the books. That's all the media. All this it's a mosh pit of just fighting inside your head, trying to get to the front. We want to get to the front, try and get on the stage and be who we think we are and fulfill what we want to do inside the system. Have our time in the limelight, in multiple different ways. But all of it is fiction. It's not our real life. It never has been, and it never will be. So the superintelligence connection is life, is nature. And the more that we can calm down, stop listening, the more we can open up that superintelligence that we feel by being evoked in nature. Because when we are raised in nature, we are evoked by it. And that stimulation is what expands, that natural synthesis of life. And so that intelligence, a child, being accessing a bear and a lion and insects and all the natural foliage of trees and bush, all these things, and all the interplaying of all these things is what stimulates life. Our superintelligence, our consciousness, because that's where our consciousness is. It's all around us. It's not in between the ears. Only the fiction is in between the ears.
Arthur, I would like to repoint the fact of feeling, okay? Because you said feelings that don't exist. Now, in this world, okay, you might think there's a devil, there's evil, there's this, there's that, all kinds of negative forces, but I only see divine forces. Evil is invented by man, it's man ways of doing evil ways, but there's no evil being on top of the earth or whatever as creator. I can buy this because all I see in me and around me is love. But now, if you are a love being, you should not experience all those feelings that don't exist really. Because if you are what you're supposed to be from a child raised in nature, born in nature, like you always say, you wouldn't even have the feeling of envy, jealousy, greed, all those low vibration feelings that most experience every day, all day, because they're not in that super soul, super consciousness, super intelligence state. So they become in low vibration because of lower vibration feelings. That's how I see it. But if we bring ourselves into galactic feelings, into feeling the galactic stuff around us, the nature, the all the points in nature, the eyes on the leaf, and you realize that, hey, you walk in nature, you're actually being watched. So this is very potent what it can do to a being. But if you're completely desensitized from what is a galactic feeling, I'm talking about bliss and stuff like that, words that I never heard before coming on YouTube. And that's the proof for me that we are completely desensitized, because I was. That's my experience. You guys coming here woke me up. Look what happened now. So,
Well,
there's
they're
that.
just insights. It's all it is. Are just insights that we've been sharing, what we were
Yeah.
perceiving. There were um, various events that occurred that helped to expand those perceptions. But the
My
the
point is
feelings.
how to reconnect with that galactic way of being. Maybe you can extend on that.
Well, the first thing I just what you touched on is that all this fiction, all this dark stuff, is actually an intention created by man. They are intentions. So it doesn't matter how dark or sinister the image may be, the scripts associated with that being. And we're talking about like Hollywood movies or a whole TV series of of some being. Would say all these things going on in our head all the time, but they are just the intentions of a man seeking to penetrate into your life to create the imprints of that intention in you so that you would then use that stimulation to resonate and recreate it, recreating it again and again because you keep thinking about it. I mean, you keep feeling it and won't let it go. So the darkness is just all darkness from heaven, hell, because heaven can become dark as well because the people
Yeah.
in fantasy can be lost in doing harm all the time. They believe that they're doing heavenly things. So it's when we get past that duality, when we overcome the duality, the left and the right brain hemispheres, the what they call the reptilian and the non-reptilian brain, all these things. I mean, I don't get into all that stuff, but all we are really looking at is just another man's intention to try to mold our perception of reality, whether it's because they want power and control, which is usually the ulterior highest motive. You look at the hierarchy of the compartmentalized of the system within the cults. You always have someone at the top who acts as the god, the god of that religion, or the god of that institution, or the god of that society, or the philosophy. Now, that God, or what we call God, the letter G just means the highest power, the highest authority, overseeing whatever it is that they believe they have power over. Right. So, you can, with Christianity, you'll have a priest acting as the representative of the God of that fiction. It's not, look, we have so deceived our lives that we will create the placebo effect because we still place good-hearted intentions, because that super intelligence, see, the super intelligence is actually the good heart and all the virtues of the good heart, like compassion, empathy, consideration, respect, you know kindness, and it goes on. There's so many virtues of the good heart. That actually is the fabric of the super intelligence. That's the substance of life itself. It's the what we can interact and touch, taste, feel, smell, hear, see. We can It's like plasticine. You can go and mold it into whatever shape you want. Well, it's not plasticine because it doesn't have an outside or an inside. We're just part of something that has no beginning, no end, that we are. And it's always existed. There's never ever been a beginning to life. Whatever's claimed to be a beginning is just a system, is a fiction. So when you look at the system, they talk about the end of the world. Well, they're talking about the end of the system, or that version of the system. They're not talking about the end of life. Even though we may try hard to corrupt it, to corrupt the superintelligence, it's sufficient to try to destroy what we call Earth, and nature, and wipe it out completely. We have this free will capacity to do that too, because our free will is unlimited. If we wake up, we can use it. And the people behind the occults high up are far more awakened about this in misusing this against all of us. Okay, so these feelings of the devil is just a man's intention who dreamt it. Now remember this, every time we breathe out, we create water. And our intentions, the images, the feelings, is encoded in every breath, because the water is a feeling, it's a substance of life itself. And then our intentions encoded. So basically you can hold a whole lot of water in your palm of your hand, right? And all those drops of water, each one of them is an intention, has a feeling. Now that could form a whole script of us talking, or could form a whole life that we wake up and go to bed every day for the whole of our life. All of that being manufactured by somebody else, because their intention is encoded in the breath that we breathe in and breathe out, because all the air, all the water is full of man's consciousness, our feelings. So we're sort of jumping various places here, but for example, the reason why the occultists high up are chemtrailing the sky and why they are using HARP and all these frequencies is because that's our consciousness that they're messing with. Because the whole of what we call atmosphere and all the celestial space is our super intelligent. It's the body of our real life, our consciousness. And they're like inside, like imagine them coming inside your brain and they're spraying inside your brain and chemicalizing, dropping in fluoride, giving you vaccinations and everything else, because they're trying everything they can to disconnect our access, our natural connection to the superintelligence. Our consciousness is all of life. And when children brought up like this, undefined, we don't interfere, allow nature to nurture them, they are expanding big pictures, big pictures, natural big pictures of life, right? But because we haven't done this, we don't know who we are anymore. We don't even know what we are anymore, because we're now inside scripts, storytelling, where everything has been defined to us. So every moment we move, you see an advertising billboard, or you see a trash magazine, or you see on your mobile phone, you've got 1,001 things chopping and changing, like flickering on the commuter monitor, just chopping, changing. And the fragmentation, you can't hold a big picture in the quiet stillness of life itself. And that's how they use us and abuse us, because we are asleep. We wake up when we actually reconnect back to that superintelligence that we are, that we're not separated from. If you follow that, because the illusion makes us think that, oh, this is Arthur, oh, that's Janik, and that's Bill, and that's Mary, and we have an address and we have a name and all these things. But all these things are fiction. And we're born in Australia, and we then die and we get buried and cremated, and because all these fictions have nothing to do with the superintelligence of our real life. You follow that? So we get so swept up by everything, and we don't even know it. And if we don't provide full disclosure to the children, well, we should have been provided with full disclosure as we were growing up, what was being done to us. We would have known better. So in a nutshell, it doesn't matter what we talk about, because it's fiction. Even all our good-hearted sentiments are fiction. When we truly wake up, we are in the natural silence of our power, because we know who we are. And we don't need to prove anything to anyone
I like this.
anymore.
Yeah.
And we don't need to validate anything to anyone anymore. There's nothing to justify. Just
Just
justify.
justify. Yeah.
Yeah, and it goes on to other things like this. So they're words, but it's a private, intimate awakening. We each come to it through senses, being able to not listen to all the seduction coming at us from within us, from that history, his story, her story, what's been done to our vessel since we appeared as this life, and from everything coming out and around us to stimulate. So you look at the occults, they stimulate 9/11, they stimulate Corona, they stimulate disturbances in the economy and going up and down, and with inflation and depression, because there's no certainty. It's all uncertain. Why? Because only in the fiction of uncertainty can you still remain asleep if you get caught up in the waves of chaos, of all these things coming at us. So everything going on social media, everything is this uncertainty, this distrust, this fear, because that is what's behind the unnatural feelings we feel as system life. You follow that? I mean, it's none of it exists. You can't go and visit money and talk to money. You can't go and visit the Supreme Court and talk to the Supreme Court. You can't go and talk to a man acting as the Supreme Court, or a man acting as the maintenance worker of the Supreme Court, or a man acting as the cleaner of the Supreme Court, or acting as a librarian or file pusher, paper pusher. You'll never, ever talk to the Supreme Court or Macquarie Bank or Hollywood or television or internet or government, because they don't exist. So look, the superintelligence does not offer us doubt, uncertainty, distrust, suspicion, fear, apathy, denial, arrogance, ignorance, ridicule, abuse. All these E-motions are man-made intentions that we are now recalling through our own vessel, because we're bonded to the trauma of these events that happened to us as part of that his story, her story, that we carry as the life in the system we call Arthur Cristian. You follow this? Because none of this is us. It was manufactured for us. It was all laid out before us. It was predetermined to keep us trapped in the matrix of this, so that we are the pariah. We are the parasites who live from the stimulation of fiction by going to nature, to life itself, and harm it and destroy it, harm each other. We have to use and abuse each other because we want something from somebody else, because we are uncertain about who we are. If we had certainty and we knew who we are, there is nothing we need from anybody, because we've already got it. So, for example, a journey towards freedom, a journey towards consciousness, a journey towards life, or a journey towards happiness does not exist. It's an illusion, because either you already are that and living it and being it, or you're not. And no destination to anything is ever going to fulfill you that way, because these are all the fictions that you can't satiate. It's insatiable. It's addictive to the trauma of recollection, recalling. I've got to get up, go to work, I've got to make money, I've got to pay my bills, then I can go and have a holiday, have a break. Then I've got to repeat it again and repeat it again. Now, inside that is many scripts that makes up the daily life, weekly life, yearly life, and then the family life of that whole life of that man or woman living that life. All of it fake, none of it real. And the whole time we are doing it, we are using life to destroy life, to harm life. You follow that? You need to go to nature to destroy, to have paper or pen. Now, I don't know if we discussed this, but just one pen, one nail, one screw, one anything of fiction requires tens of thousands of people. Requires, for example, someone's got to go to the mountain, got to go through life, to discover the minerals. You need other people who've got to do all the surveying and that. And then you have other people coming along with big machinery that starts opening it up. Then you have to have other people building the roads. Then you need to have roundabouts, street lights, policemen, military, paper workers, blue collars, white collars, bank tellers. You need to have accounting. You need to have shops. You need to have everyone providing everything, because this transporting of what we're going to take from that earth to go to the factory to machine it, to then eventually go through the processes that leads to another company that makes the pen, has involved tens of thousands of us, because we want the pen that doesn't exist. It has no purpose in life. It does nothing. Only the illusion that we think we need it because we're in the scripts of fiction. And we're self-stimulating, because the pen is not a natural tree that would stimulate the super consciousness that would evoke it from, that's already built in us. We're now evoking all the fiction that would, from the memory storehouse of all that history that was built up in us, from everything that would happen from when we were hijacked and put into the system conveyor belt, put through factory planet Earth, to be living the lives we now live in system life, where we're thinking everything fiction, which is feeling everything fiction, and you just, if you stop and slow down enough, you'll see that the scale of consumerism and materialism is our complicity in destroying life, because we have to destroy life to construct fiction, and then we have to continue doing harm to life to maintain fiction. So we've got to keep people under the law of fiction, so they become the blue collars and white collars and slaves of the job titles and descriptions and status and titles and everything else that formulates that fictional life. But the whole time, that life is a machine of absolute destruction. It is a complete turning away from the superintelligence. We are all complicit in this. All of us. Look, I'm wearing headphones. You know, I've got unnatural things like we call bricks. You can see in the back of the screen here. Computers. I mean, we are just so complicit. And all the time we are using it. The stimulation requires more harm. Why? We need more electricity coming in. We need whatever we need. We need more maintenance coming in. We need to then upgrade this, replace it for another monitor, you know, a keyboard or a mouse. Or this, it's a never-ending cycle of destruction. All of it are feelings that are distorted. They're truly distorted because they're not natural feelings. So even this language we talk is an unnatural feeling, because it has no place with the superintelligence of life itself. You follow that? Like there's nothing of nature that does this, what I just described there. Only those of us who have fallen, which is pretty much billions of us today, and through the generations, have done this. So even though we've not been given full disclosure of what's been done to us and the consequences, or how the outcome of our life, how it's going to look. Is it okay, Arthur? You know, you're 12 now. You're going to be going to high school and all that. That what we're doing to you, you're going to turn out to be this drone, this robot, this machine of destruction. But you're going to be answerable to us, because we're going to become your masters. And you're going to live a whole life, because our intention is to control and dominate, because that's what this is all about. We don't want you to have freedom. That's why our predecessors invaded your ancestors' tribe, where you, the descendants, come from, your original motherland. You follow this? So this is why the devil...
I just want to add something. Before you were talking about, tapping into the super consciousness, the super intelligence. If we have possibility, I truly think that it's possible. I have kind of experienced it, I think, but it gets very overwhelming to maybe realize that you are a chosen one. Or is that possible, that they can also tap into us and realize our potential and know this guy's not a loser? I just got to wake him up a little bit and he's going to go on with the truth or something.
Well, that's your intention. I mean, that's your intention, to reach out through that good heart, all those virtues that, look, we
So
walk
what
down.
about, is it possible that some of us, like you said, billions of us are asleep, but is it possible that some of
We
us are
can't.
chosen for this great work?
I can't represent another man. There's millions of us out there, right? What their intentions are, what their motives are. But generally speaking, when you are working from that good heart and its virtues, and that is that super intelligence that we are, and we're living that life, our ability to reach out and forgive, and our ability to reach out and embrace and nurture, ability to go out and to inspire, anyhow, to try and provide some kind of, like in my case, I use a lot of etymology, a lot of phonetics, and a lot of, I guess what I do a lot of explanation. I use symbols and things, try to describe imagery, right, to try and help people maybe work it out in their unique way, because they've got to work it out. I can't work it out for them. That's been one of the major difficulties of starting Love for Life all those years ago. I've ended up, all that passion that I had for it and doing what I was putting out, I ended up with throngs of people who wanted to follow me, and they come to me thinking, hoping that I could fix them. They never come to see who the man. You say, very rare that you meet someone who really comes to see the man. They come because they want something from you. They never admit it. Most will never admit it. They just want something. They want to be rescued. They want to be given some peace to the uncertainty, to the chaos, to be given shelter from the storm. So we can do that for others if that's your inspiration, and that's what your heart, your uniqueness inspires you to be. Then you'll use the system like we use the system to inspire others to get out of it, because more of us together as a larger group who can live a way of life conscious about this, we can create a kingdom, with the KIN, no G in it, KINDOM, which is a group of brothers and sisters of that super intelligence who want to live a way of life no longer ruled by fiction, and learn how to undo it through our generation and through our kids and other kids. So yeah, that is all possible. And yes, we can restore paradise, right? The real one, not the fantasy of it, not the there are just so many different versions of it that we aspire to, but they've been defined to us by others. I just think that everybody, from high up to lower down, the way to fix it partly is that people need space. People need space to create their dreams. They need space to be able to work out and take responsibility for their life, to learn to carry responsibilities again, naturally, not because we told them to. We don't tell them, they don't do it because they're going through the corridors of, oh, that's good, that's bad. And you're walking down the corridor, you're still trapped inside the matrix of someone else's perception. And you'll never come out of that either. You'll be stuck in it, and you could be in that loop as well. So the whole idea is to collapse both good and bad, so we don't have anything, and we just start aspiring to expanding, just like the sun that shines. It shines. It brings light. We can
Is
put
that
up.
why having balance is so important? Because when you have balance between good and bad, well, bad and good doesn't exist. You're in the middle.
You're trapped because you're in the duality of it. And that's how the system works. That's how the occults work. They take you up, bring you down. Take you
Yeah.
up, bring you down. Take you up, bring you down. So it's good to have a career, but you got to pay taxes. We're going to have an economic problem. We're going to have terrorism. We're going to have buildings collapse. We're going to have airplanes supposedly flying into buildings. We've got to protect ourselves from coronavirus. Look, there's 1,000 ones of these fear porns and other things that stimulate this thing. So we're never able to wake up and just live in the moment, be just free from all of this. Now, so the elements of Buddhism has the truth in it. The elements of Christianity and all its moral correctness has the truth in it. The same with atheism. It has the elements of the truth in it. The same with communism, socialism, capitalism. All these things have the elements of truth, of the good heart in them, but they're so snowed under by the dark side that plays out the light. So you go from left to right, and right to left, from good to bad, and bad to good, from rich to poor, and poor to rich, from up and down, and first and last, and tall and short, and fat and thin, and all this stuff. We don't wake up. We're actually not waking up, because the true waking up is not dependent on other people. Because when we wake up, we are in a domain like an aura. We're in a domain of responsibility of our real life, and we don't need anyone else for us to be that. We're not dependent on someone else for anything anymore. Then it comes down to the virtues of the good heart. We can be the sun that shines. We meet others who want to be that sun that shines, and together we co-create a light of that good intention to share a way of life. Tribal, nomadic, doesn't matter how we live it. We just refuse to want to live in fiction anymore and live our fiction. So I've said a lot in this first whatever half hour, whatever blah blahing, but in a nutshell, we cannot journey for anyone else's life. We have to first wake up to this. We are not responsible for anyone else's life because we can't. Otherwise, that's a drone, that's a robot, that's a slave, that's a cult, that's being cultish. All those things come into play. All we can do is be it and live it. So long as there's a living example, others can sense that, they can perceive it. So the idea of creating a kingdom village that we're into is to create a living example for other people to come and experience. Wow, look at these family, these people living together. They have no government, they've got no court, they've got no rules of law in that way. They have no money. They're just, their life energy is strong enough that they can carry the responsibilities where everyone is living for the village, everyone's taking care of the village, and the village is taking care of everyone. And so that energy we're putting out creates the paradise. Because, when you're conscious, you never dare to deny someone else to have some space, whether it's a hectare or whatever it is, where they can have their dreaming. And then another one. So people need to have that space. And then when people are happy, naturally, you can't lead people to happiness, right? You can't lead people to joy. That's all fiction. When people can just learn to let go and start being it, meaning they've removed themselves from uncertainty. They've removed themselves from the scripts of doubt that's playing out inside their heads. They've been able to slow everything down enough to listen carefully. Oh, God, that mortgage, that rent, it means that I don't have freedom on the land that I am on right now. I need to go and work to have fiction so that I can have a roof over my head and put food on the table and get my kids through school and do all these other things. The whole thing is that journey through fiction, which never is paradise. We're not living it here and now. So it doesn't matter who is out there, from Elon Musk to the President of the United States, right through all the Joe Rogan, didn't go through the lot. They are all caught up in the fiction. And they can only offer more fiction. And everyone who's hoodwinked and stuck into it, bless their heart, they may not even be conscious of what I'm sharing here. They may not truly know the truth of what I'm sharing here. If they do, it makes them incredibly sinister, incredibly malevolent.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's bound to be a few people, right? Because fiction can't do anything by itself. The knowledge that forms fiction requires some man who has to hold it and carry out all that information. Like if you see it, look, I've talked about this in the older videos. It's like a dead corpse, corporation, private corporation, dead corporation, right? Everything fiction. You're walking and you see a dead body on the road before you, and you want to animate this dead body. You have to pick it up and perform its leg movement, its arm movement. You've got to be able to move its tongue. You've got to be able to open and close its eyes. You've got to do everything for it. Now, that's exactly what a robot is, right? So that's AI, artificial intelligence. That's what fiction is. So if you look at it carefully like this, we have to perform everything for the fiction. It doesn't matter whether we create a sophisticated software with algorithms that plays out as if it's apart from it. It's not. It's still a man behind a computer screen. It's a man behind an office. It's a man behind a throne, man behind a temple, with the intention to see all this manifest and to seduce as many people they can suck into it, to be caught up in the fiction. Because it can't do anything for itself. Fiction never, ever can do anything for itself because it does not exist. So, if you want to put on a stage show of Alice in Wonderland or Superman or whatever, they're all fictions. You have to have enough people who already accepted the scripts, who believe in the feelings of all these things, who were willing to labor to create the props and the stages and all the costumes and write out all the different storylines and stuff. Then you need actors to perform the different characters within it. But all of this is fiction. It wouldn't matter whether you had 100,000 people clapping at the end of a brilliant Alice in Wonderland. Little Mary who performed Alice is still no proof that Alice exists. It's only the only thing that exists is a man, Little Mary, before us. All right. So this is the true awakening, is to wake up to all this. We are the ones performing all fiction. So even the horrors that were done to us. I mean, I grew up sexually abused. I didn't know I was sexually abused. I discovered through the Love Life work that I found out that I was sexually abused, and through the body experience, and the amount of anger and rage and things that I had in me from what happened to me as a kid. So I had to represent the anger of whoever directed that anger into this vessel, that I now connect with and recall it and perform it. So I'm using the stimulation of fiction to evoke it, so I can walk into it and experience the anger again and again and again. Or misery, or loneliness. Nobody loves me. You know, it goes on and on and on and on. It's staggering. But when we wake up, all this just collapses. And what's left is a man standing on land, truly free, peaceful, but no words. Doesn't need anyone else. Doesn't need to follow anyone else. Doesn't need to be followed. Now that is the true heart, the real power of life itself. That's what we were meant to be, which is built into all of us, and we still feel it. We still sense parts of it. It's just the shattered reality of so much pixelation and fragmentation of little definitions that have formed into millions and millions of disturbing things going inside our head, and in that his story that we've accumulated. And we present that his story, oh, this is Arthur Cristian, and, you know, Arthur has an ego, because I had a whopping ego, and surviving life. And I had to make myself be seen by other people. I wanted to impress other people. I wanted people to notice me. I wanted to know that I had a sense of belonging, that I felt right, that I felt like I was achieving something, and that I would be looked upon by others being someone worthwhile, that I was a good citizen. Not that I ever really was. I was always a rebel. But, you know, what I'm getting at, like, I'm only touching on little glimpses of these things. All of this is fiction. It's a lie. It ain't who we are. None of us who we are.
I just want to point again to that balance thing, because you said people need space. And really, I think to live in balance and harmonious way here is find that space between the thoughts. That's where the balance is inside your brain. Is often we have good thoughts, bad thoughts, whatever. But even like you say, the good thoughts could be illusion, just fiction, and the bad thoughts where they don't exist. So really, I think the space to occupy inside our head is between the thoughts. And then you become balanced. If you can attain that space in between the thoughts, is it possible?
Well, again, it's just whether we are strong enough to return to not being influenced by other people's intentions on us, their expectations, that we are no longer answerable to anybody. The true awakenings is when we don't need anyone and we know it. It's there where that peace and calm naturally occurs. When your creativity, you know, like you with you're doing with your dub plate, you're using fiction, you're using reggae and things that you love in that, and that's your connection. But what's driving you through all of this is there's a passion behind it for a bigger picture that you are directing your intention into, to try and create interesting reggae music, catchy reggae music. What doesn't matter how it goes, how you're offering of that, it might touch someone somewhere one day, somehow. May have already done thousands of people like this. You know, they've got them to begin to journey into other areas of thinking they never even thought about, to realize, my God, I've got to stop all this. We have to end this. Like people are on an iPhone or a Samsung Galaxy And every moment there's another thing happening. And it just changes and changes and changes and changes and changes. And the pixelation, the amount of disturbance to that true peace, because that peace is the true power, the natural one. It doesn't play with anyone else, of who we are. And that peace and calm is what everybody needs to have, that space. Now, it's difficulty when you're bringing that his story of all that trauma, of all those years of being stimulated by ego, E-go, E-motion, E ecclesiastical, meaning the high priest's intention to reach into your domain, penetrate through your vessel, and imprint you with their power, their interests, their things, to get you to start focusing on that and start forgetting the natural one that you're really part of. None of that's even spoken about. It's all done anyway. It's all done through blatant, like we talk about a vessel sailing on the seas of alphabets. The vessel doesn't exist. The sea doesn't even exist. But we have all been given a birth certificate. That person that's going to form his story, the holding of all the memories of all these unnatural feelings that we talk about and intellectualize. They're all unnatural feelings of fiction. All of it's just fiction. Just make it simple. There's life and anti-life. There's life, and that anti-life is fiction. There's life, and then there's that anti-Christ, because Christ is life. Life and Christ, one and the same thing. And anti-Christ is fiction. So you got, in the analogies, you got light and dark. Now you need both of them playing out to keep you trapped in the matrix. You got to have the fear of hell and the fear of God and or whatever fantasies that we play out, because it doesn't have to be just a fear. It can be just the illusion and delusion of something out there that we believe is real when none of it's real. And we'll create our own stage with others who get caught up in the placebo effect. We'll, through our breath and through the images that we hold, we'll put it out there and create a simulation, a hologram that we call a cult, or we call it a political party or a movement, or a breaking away from one movement to another movement. And the whole history, his story is full of this stuff. Because you need the light and the dark to play out all the time, to create conflict, to create reaction. So that becomes the stimuli that you feed off to create another matrix, to create another domain of fantasy, illusion, and delusion. So hence one political party's in, another political party's out. One particular philosophy's in, another one is out. We move and change. We jump. We're looking like horses looking over the fence of greener pastures. We're always chopping, changing, moving, but we never know who we are. We keep searching for it. Oh, that's something. That's, we think this is who we are. None of it is who we are. None of this is anything to do with who we are, because what that already exists. We're just desensitized. We've lost the connection, because connection is that 24/7 focus on the fiction, the whole system life.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that super connection, that super consciousness, super intelligence is there. I think the proof's in the pudding. Look outside in nature. If you don't think I'm right, just observe and you will realize there is super intelligence at work. Now, is it possible also to read?
Hey, hang on a sec. So, one of my daughters has just come home and the dogs are barking.
Okay.
I'm live doing. Thanks. That's a mobile super intelligence just going past me.
So is it possible to also extrapolate our senses? Because I think we have more than 5 senses. Now, when we're stuck in the dark, in the matrix and stuff, you might just think you have 5 senses. But I think it goes way beyond 5, probably around 12 senses that we can experience and feel.
Let's take it further. Every life form is unique and original. So what you sense is with that life form, and then with another one is another something you sense. So it's uncountable. It's beyond numbers here. Sensory is just the intelligence of the true godliness of life that we are. So we don't become precious and try and define into a box and say, like, I just use touch, taste, feel, smell, hear, see as just for people to try and access the idea of this. But when we wake up, you can't define the senses. It's uncountable. It's beyond our comprehension, man, because every life form around us offers a stimulation that's different to another life form. Even if you have the same yellow daffodil appearing in 5 different places you're looking at, each one offers a different stimuli to our sensory experience. So that each one of them is a different sensory experience, right? And it's changing. Life's always changing. So we don't live in the scripts of what someone told me that's yellow and that's a daffodil, because that means I can't sense anymore, because I'm still caught up in the fiction in my head, which is creating the veils. It's like a potato sack you put over the life form to shroud it in darkness, so I can't feel it anymore. I can't sense it. I've only got his story in my head about, oh, it's this and it's that, and it's part of this and it does this and that, and that's the whole of science coming out and all those scripts of science. So you can't define senses. Senses is not an individual. It's not an individual thing. It's just an imprint. It's a stimulation of life itself.
Even animal senses, you can
exactly. You couldn't put, when a dog comes and sniffs our butt, as I mentioned, you couldn't put all that information of that big picture. You couldn't even house it in all the libraries, because the dog picks up such a big picture with one sniff. So the senses of that is different to the sense with the cat, and the sense with a different dog, and a sense with them. It's always changing. So it's not about remembering everything, which is what we're taught to do, which keeps us shut down. It's learn to set that aside and start experiencing the stimulation of life, that super intelligence all around us in the moment of the eternal here and now. That's eternal life now. And that's what we're part of. And it's that carries on forevermore. But the fiction that we peeled away from that superintelligence doesn't. It's already dead. It can't carry on. So the fake personality, I'm a Christian and I believe in Jesus, and I've already got Jesus in the afterlife. It doesn't matter all the imprints and images and healings and experiences and encounter everything. We create everything to the experience. No matter what the experience is, it's always a man to the experience. We are the only ones to the experience. So say, look, apologize, jumping, this is another of those older themes. When we talk about aliens, it's a man who's talking about aliens. If we're talking about UFOs and all that stuff, it's a man talking about it, or was a man that made them and didn't provide full disclosure to everyone else that they made them, but it is man-made. It's all man-made. It's all staged. It's all props in the scripts of unidentified floating objects, or aliens in another world, or reptilian shapeshifters. Whatever we are experiencing is at the effect of another man's intention. There is no thought that you could ever experience. There's no idea that was not created by a man. No matter what you experience, it is a man who created it. And because we are impressionable, because of the water that we're part of, that consciousness, that superintelligence, we can be accessed and be gotten at by so many other stimulation coming at us, evoked by other men and women. So you can get caught up and join a new religion by that, thinking this is the right one, or believing you're doing the right thing. And you can have a lot of good-hearted sentiments all caught up in it. But it's still a fiction that keeps you trapped. So you're still shut down in spite of whatever good-hearted sentiments are happening and playing out. And that's what's made people so weak and powerless, because they don't realize the relationship they have with fiction that's harming so many other people that they don't want to look at. I'm saved. I'm going to the afterlife. I'm going to be sitting by the side of God and my Messiah, Jesus. But in the meantime, they don't want to look at all the materialism and consumerism that they're caught up in of system life, where they are completely devoted to destroying everything to prop up the fantasy of their afterlife, even though they may experience the healing. They may experience a form of peace But we can create anything to our experience, but it still be fiction. But if we're not smart enough, we won't see it for the fiction that it is, which which becomes apparent. Going back to one of the questions you asked me, when we realize the fiction and we can see it for what it is from the bigger picture, we can learn to undo our life from that. Stop giving our energy, stop relying on that to stimulate our relationship to that fiction, to that script, to that story, to that religion, to that cult, to that business, to that economy, whatever you want to call it, political science, whatever you want to call it. So we are we are caught in the good and the bad that was man-made. We're caught in the good or bad of every story we've ever come across. Whatever's been thought about, it's a man behind it. There's never not been a man not behind what we are experiencing, because we are the only ones here. We have only been the only ones here. You can't go and talk to a race of aliens. You can talk to the
Okay,
placebo. You can
I
talk to the placebo effects of aliens.
I get it fully, Arthur, but how do we explain the crop circles?
Again, you only notice that crop circles only started appearing since technology came along, since the 1800s. We haven't had any records of any that I've ever come across. We have to look at the intentions of what we've created. Look, for example, if our intention is such to create a beast phenomena, we call it the system, and gave it its own power, we can feed all the fiction that we are living from, all the emotional stuff, with jealousy, anger, rage, suspicion, fear, doubt, uncertainty, distrust. It only goes, right? All that. We can feed and direct all that into the system beast. And this beast can be given its own autonomy, because we've dreamt it that way, to come at us and attack us and get at us through all the demonic stuff that it has to offer, because we dreamt it that way. We gave it that intention. So if we can connect with the high levels of the occults, with these high priests and what they intended, because I can't, again, this is something people have to work out for themselves. All alphabet languages and all the scripts that come out of it was all produced from ritual sacrifice through bloodletting and blood libel. So every image that's a part of that shadow reality, every fragmentation of unnatural feelings was manufactured through ritual sacrifice, which I won't go into the detail of at this point, but it's so we can collectively feed this alien phenomena, this beastly thing, which is what's written in the New Testament and the Old Testament, all this sort of stuff. It's written in books. And we can be susceptible. I mean, when I was growing up, I remember I walked into spaces like nightclubs and music places, halls, and I could feel that there was an attack happening already upon me. Like I was already marshalling the troops to come at me and have a shot at me. I was aware of that as a teenager. I didn't comprehend it. I just was aware that this was going on. So I knew that I could walk down a street, past a house I've never been inside, not even knowing the people living in it, and I could feel the misery and the unhappiness of that house. Or I could feel the happiness and joy. So that's coming out, radiating out to influence me. So the system can come out and influence us in many different seductive ways to make us do what we do. Oh, we end up in court because we murdered someone. Oh, because the devil told me to do it. I heard this voice and I followed it. So we claim insanity and we claim, mental issues. And
Okay, but why exactly, like you explained, we can have all kinds of engage into all kinds of bad rituals and stuff, but we never feel the shame from it, and we never really want to explore anything else because we think that's the only thing that exists in this world. But once you start exactly having a bit greater feelings and going on the righteous path, if I can say, it becomes very overwhelming. The feelings, the blessing,
it
all the
does
good
happen.
stuff happening. So while you're on doing bad stuff or engage into the very evil stuff, sometimes not even without knowing. For most, it's without knowing. Then you're never overwhelmed by those feelings, so you never feel trapped. You know where I want to go. So once you start shifting inside, now you start feeling overwhelmed. I find myself feeling overwhelmed, Arthur, so often.
You're not the only one,
And
mate. All of us go through it because
overwhelming, big time of feelings of the other day I
we've
was on the bike
created.
path and the moon and Venus, something came at me very bright in the sky. I was so overwhelmed by the feeling. I was like on the bike path alone. I was going like, wow, wow, wow. And I was freaking out. So, that feeling of being overwhelmed by the good vibes, but even that is fiction, like you said, by the natural vibe.
Well, if you
Yeah.
if you look if you imagine, this is just a linear analogy. I'm using a way to try to describe. Imagine a ball. It's like a solid ball, and inside it is the super intelligence of the whole of life. It's in its domain. There is no other feeling in there but that is super intelligence, seeing the good heart and all its virtues. And all that intelligence is in that. Now, as long as that's maintained as being pure, it will never lead to what you just described, what you and I are talking about. But because a man started this fiction, it was all man-made, we started to introduce a little bit of distorted feeling inside this ball, this domain of life. And then we added another one, and then another one, and another one, until through the generations, we're swamping the whole of nature with such destruction because of so much fiction and so much hypothesis and opinions and all the science behind it, and that all the time that we believe that we're doing the right thing, we're actually bringing the next generation, the one after that, closer to extinction by what we participated in right now,
Yeah.
right? So if you can imagine that, to return back to that true freedom, to that true life, we have to return our domain back to that purity, which means we have to stop focusing on and listening to and reacting and responding to the distorted feelings, anger, jealousy, greed, selfishness, distrust, fear, apathy, denial, arrogance, righteousness. It goes on and on. There's many of them, all manufactured through ritual sacrifice. This distortion has come into our body. And we could be so 24/7 practicing, recalling this distortion in our domain of our life that we wake up, I've got to go to work, I've got to go do this, I've got to do that, I've got to do this. And there's so many things going on in the stimulation. Nothing coming from the superintelligence. It's in the scripts of the history that we're trapped in that matrix of our own making, not knowing that we made it. No one told us when we were kids, this is what's going to become of us. That it comes overwhelming when a moment happens where somehow we can just step aside from that darkness and start to experience the incredible magnificence. But then you look back and go, oh my God, how do you, I mean, I had these things happen for me, various things that led up to 2005 in the fiction of time. And I started Love for Life with my wife. I had no one to go to tell me about it. I had no book to study. There was no master I could sit under and be guided. There was nothing. I just did it. I just decided, just do it.
That's it. Just
And
do it.
just do it. And that unfolded all the insights of what became Love for Life, all that work and, all that big website, and then all the attacks that came and all that history of just these people want power. They don't want to see people like us, influencing public thinking, That's why, in the music industry, film industry, most of it's all puppets now, because all the good people with good intentions who would never follow and support the destructive agendas would have spoken out against it. They've all been bumped off, removed, put out of the way, been given a sickness and they died of cancer, whatever. The alchemy behind these occultic people is pretty lethal. The methods they have to try and destroy you and remove you and wipe out, try and infiltrate your own groups and try to create subversion and just anger and rage and distrust amongst people in a group can break a whole group up from outside and inside. It goes on and on. The scale of all this stuff is humongous. But the domain of life is just a domain of purity, and that purity is that super intelligence. It is the good heart, all the virtues. It is nature. It is life. It is what we're meant to be accessing, and that's what we build our real lives out of, each of us uniquely. But we've been hoodwinked, hijacked into accessing a history of knowledge that's man-made through fiction, and we practice 24/7 recalling it. Yeah, follow. We've got to learn how to what's left and right. We've got to learn how to drive a car. We've got to learn how to take the car for maintenance. We've got to learn how to see signs. We've got to learn, okay, there's a red light, there's an orange light, there's a green light at pedestrian crossings and street lights, etc. And it goes on. The amount of thoughts coming and going out of our head in a day is beyond most people's comprehension of fiction. Just to have us performing all that fiction as the man who picked up the dead body to perform its arms and legs that can't do anything for itself. We are now performing the fiction of the robot Arthur Cristian and Jean-Luc Lunier and everybody else who's doing this, right? So it is daunting when we have that moment, that epiphany or something, whatever it is, and you go, oh my God. It happened to me. It happened quite a few times. I thought I could wake people up, Johnny. I honestly thought I could wake people up. I did everything I possibly could. I was lambasted. I was put down. I was told I was a cult leader, that I was running cults. All I want to do is to inspire people to create community, a do no harm community, and learn to live without the system anymore. That's what was my motive. So there's a lot of work involved by the occults to keep people trapped and to stop any other thing that could threaten their power structure from it collapsing, right? And they've got to control all outcomes. So no matter what comes at us, they've got to control that information. The people behind it have got to be their puppets. They've got to control as much as they possibly can so that the outcome meets the agenda that they're aspiring to, what they want. But most people are too dumbed down to realize this is what's going on. Those who have some waking up will realize the bigger picture, what I'm addressing here. But again,
Arthur, we're gonna have to cut this one short because I have to go pick up my son. But what if we get back together again tomorrow? Are you available?
Yeah, I
would like to expand tomorrow on the awareness also. Awareness, super consciousness, super connection, whatever. That's a topic that I think might take a few talk to explore it all, because I bottled up all kinds of stuff inside tonight because I want to let you talk, but I want to hear you on the stuff that
I'm all for it.
I took all kinds of notes here during the time you were talking, so yeah, I have more.
I'm all for it, Johnny. I was going to suggest when you put this video, I'll link it. And other people who watch this, if they've got questions they want to ask, maybe shoot through to you.
Oh yeah.
The questions.
I read every comment. I might not reply to all because I don't know. I don't think it's necessary sometimes, but I give a little heart or something. I read them all and I forward them to Arthur also if you have something for him. So definitely if you want to join us in the super consciousness work, yeah, for sure. It's together as one thing.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, okay, so we'll be here again the same time tomorrow. I'll set it up and everything. It's just he's waiting for me at the restaurant now, so I don't want to make him wait too long.
All good, mate. All good. This is great. I really enjoy bouncing off your enthusiasm.
When you told me you want to go live now, I said, yeah, for sure. I'm in. When it's time to dance, I dance. So we're out now. We're out of the dance floor. See ya.
Bye, everyone.